Yeah. Everybody knows that I'm breaking down. Everybody knows I ain't faking now. Everybody knows my heart's vacant now. Yeah, she hates me now. I made mistakes, but now I don't ever wanna be alone. I don't really ever feel at home. On my own, in the zone. That's the only way I know. Feeling low, about to blow back up. Here I won't ever let the doubt creep in. Gotta pop a couple more aspirin. I don't think I'll ever let you in. Easier to break it off best friends. I don't really understand myself. I don't really understand, need help. I don't wanna be left on the shelf. Couldn't even hear me if I yelled. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold. Break down, always feel like I could break now, but I never let it take me to that place now. I won't ever let my thoughts get away now. I got better things to do, picking fate now. I just wanna be the best, call me great now. I don't know if I'm okay or insane now. I remember better days on the playground, hoping I can find my way even when I'm feeling down. I fight, even when I don't know what is right. I'ma pick a side and I'ma take pride. I will decide my fate and I will never let them tell me who I am. If you try to shape me, I'll be damned. Planet on the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold.
Well then, hello. Before we get started, I have some big announcements and of course a couple of changes I'm doing as I go. But before we get into that, as always, I am your wonderful host. And don't mind me, I'm actually doing my laundry right now. But in the meantime, I have Neek and I also have Rich with me, who for once has finally decided to get on early. Hello, you two.
You mean Rex is here on
Well, he's here for the first time.
time?
On time. But you know, at least it counts for something at least.
My apologies for that.
But anyway, before we get into the conversation, I did get together with Neek, and Rick just found out today as well. But apparently, according to him, we're doing a Dr. Seuss podcast, which is not the case. Just throwing that out there.
2 by 2.
Bluefish, redfish.
Oh my God.
But
Y'all
we're
making
gonna.
fun of me.
Of course, well, we have to because you haven't been here for a while. But
All right, let Dean talk. Let Dean talk.
so it's gonna be a to be determined kind of date because I'm not sure how we're gonna squeeze this into it, but we're actually gonna do a true crime, not 2 by 2, a true crime podcast, meaning that we can talk about like different serial killers or different crimes that have been happening around the states. The reason how this came up was like a whole other story, but that's a whole other story for another day. So for now, we're like I said, it's gonna be a to be determine. And also throwing this out there too. We're still looking for people who want to participate in our election podcast coming in on February 8th. So if you're interested, please let me know, or at least send me a DM or something, and see if you want to be featured in here, either as a guest or have your comments read out loud. So, Nick, what is the recap that we left off last week?
Well, so
She
last week
really said, "Oh."
no, because I said I had to cough my lungs up. Okay. So last week we talked about. So we talked. Oh yeah.
Palestine and Israel.
Thank you, Rex. My brain left me there for a second. My bad, y'all.
Oh, come back to dry land.
Yeah, right. We talked about Israel and Palestine, and we got a little bit into the land, and
I believe we also got a little bit of the government as well.
we touched a little bit on the government, but not really too
in depth.
What?
I said too in depth.
Yeah, we didn't go too in depth with it. Mostly it was the land, who occupied the land, the empires and all that controlled the land. Over,
I believe we also talked about a little bit of the history as well.
The history of the land, history of. Hold on, I gotta. Okay.
How far back do you want to go on history?
Hold on. My laptop fan shifted, and it's not directly under my laptop, and it made my laptop go tilted. Okay, I'm good now.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, I went to open up the PDF that I had, and I knocked my entire laptop off of my my fan under it. So yeah. Anyways, and so today we're gonna talk a little bit about wars, plans, and agreements that have taken place throughout the years. What the governments look like, and things like that. So.
What about my favorite topic of all?
That goes into that falls into the government. You'll be able to talk about that. Trust me.
Hey.
So, and you'll notice also with some of these agreements, and especially once we get into specifically the different governments of the Palestine territories, you'll see that land switches a lot too. Occupying of different lands and stuff are still shifting.
Let me just say and throw this out there just to be silly. Your coffee is not helping you whatsoever.
What?
I said your coffee is not helping you whatsoever.
Let me tell you, it has been a day, okay? But that's not even the important part. As long as they get what I'm trying to say, that's what matters, right? Right. Okay, so we touched a little bit on religion in the last one as well, but most of it did have to do with land. And who occupied the land. And by land I mean the entirety of that land, whether the land that Gaza Strip, West Bank, and Israel are currently on.
Where they're battling out pretty much.
Exactly. The occupations of it, and all that good stuff. We talked about all that. So you will see but hear about different lands and occupations today as well, but it's all part of the plans and agreements, the wars, and all that good stuff. So we're gonna start with what I like to call the history of Palestine. Okay. Now, yes.
Can I add something? It's not just the land and government. We got to look at Israel and also Palestine has government. When they get a new regime in, it can change the entire thing, and they could do things different. So it's not just government alone; it's who wins the party and dominates it. So that's something to keep in mind. Who does what's what?
Yes, yes, yes. And that is part of it. However, in today's podcast, you will learn um, the governments in Palestinian territories don't really differ too much, Rick. Like, you'll figure that out. But anyways, um, so we're gonna start with some plans that have gone into place. We all know the British mandate, the Oslo Accord. Like, there are some of them that we hear about a lot, and even if you don't know what they are, you hear people talk about them
Well,
on the news.
I'm pretty sure you even see them, like either on articles or people talking about it, or even on the street as well.
Yeah, like you might watch a YouTube video of like whatever newspapers, news articles, like Dean said, and like you'll hear some of the more famous ones, like the Abraham Accords. Like, there's so many of them that they like to put out there, but there's also a lot that a lot of people probably don't know about, because unless you take an extensive history class on that piece of land, um, people aren't really talking too much about the actual history of that land. Okay, and that's what has
Which is a
brought us.
shame. Which is a shame because I feel like it's something that needs to be talked about, not just like in general or like in school too.
Well, it is something that needs to be talked about, because I think the lack of talking about it has led us to where we are today, where you literally have people who think that Hamas is just resistance force in Palestine, when in reality it's a terrorist organization that is a product of the Muslim Brotherhood. Oh my goodness. Okay.
The Muslim Brotherhood.
You had the same issue that I had last week.
But anyways, so I mean, yeah, like, not talking about it, especially in terms of Palestinian government history, has caused us to get where we are today. Now, I want to be clear on this. I'm not going into this in a pro-Israel or pro-Palestine point of view. I'm just
Yes,
stating facts.
we're just stating facts, and we're also just offering a little thoughts and opinions in here on this big matter. We're not professional. We leave that to the mainstream media, even though they're not professional either. But it is what
Yeah,
it
I'm
is.
about, I'm about to say, I'll probably educate you a little bit more honestly than media would. I mean,
But
if
I
you
mean,
want,
still,
if you want facts and not paid and bought for feeling, listen to us. Don't listen to the NBC and CNN and Fox News and whatever news. Just listen to us. We got the facts here, okay? We don't care about feelings. We got that. Just say.
we
That
don't care.
includes
We don't care
Fox
about
too.
feelings. But anyway,
No, see, you look, Rick. See, I'm gonna have so much fun next week when we talk about politics. Because Dean, did I not say NBC, CNN, and Fox?
mm-hmm. She did
And then
mention
he
them.
said, "Tara, that includes Fox News too." Shut up. We ain't even talking about Fox. Don't even get me started. We're talking about Palestine right now, okay? I'm gonna have so much fun with Rich next week, man. I might get banned. I'm just saying. Okay. Um. Okay. So we're gonna start with the different agreements, declarations, mandates, correspondence. What I like to put in bulk as the plan. Okay. Um. We're gonna start with one called the Kusan McMahon. No, McMahon correspondence. You could tell. I watch wrestling. Like, I straight go to make. But anyways, so the Hassan McMahon correspondence. It's an exchange of letters from July 1915, March 1960, between Sir Henry, British High Commissioner in Egypt, and the Emir of Mecca. I'm not even gonna try to say his name, because I really don't want to butcher these Arab, because you know what I mean. Like, I'm just be respectful and just say their titles rather than their. But these letters made certain commitments to the Arabs in return for their support against the Ottomans during the war. So, what this means is British, they be weird, right? And especially back in the day, it was really weird. And if they wanted you on their side, they was going to do it in any ways possible. So, they're like, oh, okay, we'll give you this, 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 and this, and we'll let you do this, 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 and this. But they're telling the Arabs, if you help us defeat the Ottomans, okay, that's what they were saying. And of course, the Arabs were like, yeah, let's support Britain. Let's get rid of the Ottomans. Because look, they're being promised land. They're being promised everything you can think of. Okay, that's what they're being promised. Now, you have to remember this is during the war. So here's a history question. If it's between 1915 and 1960, which war are we talking about?
World War I.
Good job, Rick. See, Rick's is smart. You gotta give him some credit. We're talking about World War I. Yes, we are. So British was like, yo, we're in the middle of a war. It's a world war. If you help us beat the Ottoman Empire, we got you. We're gonna give you land. We're gonna give you this. We're gonna, like 100%. And the Arabs are like, oh, okay. And I want y'all to keep this in mind. Y'all are gonna hear the British a lot, okay? And I just want you to keep something in mind. When we're talking about the Arabs, listen to the promises that people are making, because although I know we look at what's going on right now between Israel and Palestine, and we look at the history, it is going to, hold on one second, it is going to look like
a shitstorm.
A shitstorm where the Palestinian and the Arab nations are just coming together and just beating the shit out of Israel. And yes, they have a mission and a goal, which we'll talk about later. But at the same time, when you realize the actual history and the agreements and the promises that were made to them, especially by the British, that were not actually lived by and never happened, you can understand. Now, remind you, I'm not talking about the government here. I'm not talking about Hamas or anything like that. I'm talking about the Palestinian citizens, the people, okay? Not the people that run the territories, but the people that live in them, okay? You can understand their grievance, and you can understand why they have grown up over the years pissed as hell, okay? I'm just going to put that out there. Do I think they're taking it out on the wrong people? Yes, they need to be beating Britain's ass, not Israel's, but that's another story.
She said that's another story.
But
technically you're wrong. Technically you're not wrong, but still.
Yeah, I mean, you will kind of feel a sense of compassion for the people. Again, not the government, the people under Palestine rule. Because, I mean, they have had shit. Whenever they hoped for something, it just demolished. So I do want to state that before we go on. So we're still in World War I, and then May 1916 comes, and there's this. Now, mind you, they were just promised that they were going to get all this crap if they helped defeat the Ottomans during the war, right? Now, in May,
an insert there, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, just a quick review. The Ottoman Empire has been around about practically 700 years, and they collapsed during that time.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
And they were the largest empire compared to Rome for a long time. So
yeah,
now I can let you pick up on that.
And we talked about that very thing last week when you were not here. No, honestly, Rick, we did. I talked in depth about the Roman Empire, and then how they were taken over by the Byzantine Empire, and then the the Ottoman Empire, and then the British. We talked about all of those empires in depth that took over the land. So, like, that was something that was mentioned last. So this is going. You caught me all off guard, right? So yeah, this correspondence was promises made by the British to the Arabs in return for their support against the Ottomans during the war. In May of 1916, the same year, there was a secret convention between Great Britain and France with the assent of Imperial Russia for the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire. Okay?
Okay. That's
This
interesting.
agreement led to the division of Turkish-held Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Palestine into various French and British administered areas. Now, keyword secret. Now British just went and they just got done promising all this stuff to the Arabs in return for their support against the Ottomans during the war. Then a secret convention came about that nobody knew about except for the people that were involved, right? And it can completely change what was going on. Negotiations were begun in November 1915, and the final agreement took its name from the chief negotiators from Britain and France. Okay, so it's called the Sky Picket Agreement. Okay.
It's very curious how they have the name set up like that.
Yeah, that's the names of the people, though.
Oh well.
Yeah, everything was named after people. I don't get it. But okay, so in the midst of World War I, the question arose of what would happen to the Ottoman territories if the war led to the disintegration of the sick man of Europe. The Triple Entente moved to secure their respective interests in the region. They had agreed in March 1915 to give Russia and areas around it which would provide access to the Mediterranean Sea. France, meanwhile, had a number of economic investments and strategic relationships with Syria, especially in the area of Aleppo, while Britain wanted to secure access to India through the canal and Persian Gulf. It was out of a need to coordinate British and French interests in these regions that this agreement was born. Now, mind you, this is the first time that the Arabs are getting. Okay, so here are the provisions of the agreement. Are y'all ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready for this.
Okay. Great Britain, and I'm not going to read all of the provisions, just the ones that pertain to the land that we're talking about, right?
Okay.
So, France should acquire Lebanon, the Syrian, littoral, and the hinterland adjacent to Russia's share. That hinterland included, I'm going to try to say these names. Okay, Antab, Urfa, Mardin, and Masal. Great Britain should acquire southern oh my God, okay, including Baghdad and also the Mediterranean ports of Haifa and Acre. So, why is this important? It's important because Palestine, because of the holy places, should be under international regime. So once again, the land of Palestine was screwed because British decided to have a secret agreement with other countries that they could come back to and be like, oh, yeah, so we get something out of this. Oh, yeah, screw the Arabs. Like, we don't need them. If you're going to help us dismember, no. So that's number one that got screwed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're keeping count here. count. Then, in November of 1917, a statement of British support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. Okay.
I love how you sounded so excited there for a second.
Yeah. So this is known as the Balfour Declaration. Statement of British support for the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. It was made in a letter from Arthur James Balfour, again, another one that has named after a person, the British Foreign Secretary. So this correspondence or declaration was contradictory to both the correspondence and the Skies Agreement. It once again became something that the Arabs felt like they were pushed to the side of. Because what we have to
words, they were
remember,
being ignored.
well, yes. And part of that is because, remember, this is all British controlled, this area right now, right? And you have some French control there within, like, the West Bank and stuff. But a lot of your people who were in the British Parliament are part of the leadership in London that was in charge of this territory were Zionists, okay? And the Zionist leaders in London fell short of the expectations of the Zionists in Israel, who had asked for the reconstitution of Palestine as the Jewish national home. So, at this point in time, in 1970, we have the same kind of conflict as we have right now, where the Palestinians are saying, no, this is our land, and the Jews are saying, no, this is our land, and you need to recognize Palestine and make it, our home, and then saying, well, no, we need to take your land and make it our home. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's the same conflict.
So here's one question that I want to throw out there. Not like moving away from it at all, but was Israel around that time frame? Wasn't even Israel. Wasn't even called Israel, was it?
No, it was called Palestine because remember Rome named it Palestine. When
So,
Rome,
so the land that was
Rome,
so basically, the area that was technically Israel wasn't named. It was actually still Palestine.
well, okay, so we have to go back even further though. So if we're talking about at this point in 1917, it was technically called Palestine.
Okay.
But remember, before the Roman Empire named it, took control and named it Palestine, what was it called before that?
You're asking the wrong person because I can't think that far back.
Israel.
There were two countries, Israel and others, but they were also other countries as well. But the Israelite, they had two countries.
Well, no, they had one nation of Israel that was broken up into two parts. It wasn't two different countries. It was because it wasn't even a country. It wasn't a state. It was a nation. It was one nation that was named Israel that was broken up into two different parts. Does that make sense, Rick? Rick.
Mr. X.
You're cutting out back and forth unless that's me.
Well, she says fine.
It was one nation.
Okay, I got you.
Broken up into two different parts. It wasn't two different countries. Because you also have to remember right now, at that point, what you're talking about, Israel was not a state or a country. It was a nation. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Cause
he's
that, cause
talking
that's what I
biblical.
wanted to know. Cause I was like, that question has been in the back of my mind for a while. And I was like, what the hell was it even
Well,
called Israel at that point?
well, yeah, and we did kind of talk. We touched on that last week when we talked about, remember, because the Romans came in and they completely destroyed Israel and conquered Israel entirely and renamed it Palestine.
Yeah, I
Okay.
remember.
Yeah. Um. Then we had the British Mandate, which I love. I mean, just gonna put that out there. The British Mandate is one of the ones that is the most over misunderstood, and people like to you. I know you guys have heard about the British Mandate, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, I don't think a lot of people that actually talk about it actually understand what it was and what it did, or if they learned about it in school, they didn't actually learn about it in its entirety, and they only learned about the things that people wanted them to know. Okay. Um, was the British Mandate a terrible mandate? No. Was it the right mandate needed for the land? No. Okay, and
Well,
I'm gonna say this.
no treaty and no like rule, whatever you want to call it, is perfect.
Well, here's the thing. There was already tension between the Arabs and the Israelis on the land, right?
Yeah, which is not really that uncommon today.
No, but now you bring in the British Mandate of July 1922, and you think the tensions before the British Mandate were bad? Let me put it this way: the British Mandate has set in motion from July 1922 until today. Everything that we have seen since the British Mandate between Palestine and Israel, including what we are seeing today, is a product of the British Mandate, and I say that with all honesty. I think the British had good intentions, but I think they went about it the wrong way, because I will be completely honest. The British were 90% for the Israelis, and if you want to be generous, you could say 10% for the Arabs. Um, Although, like I said, 10% for the Arabs is even being generous. They were very, very pro Israel. Okay.
Which is surprising, because I always figured it would be the opposite. The opposite.
No, yeah, you would think so, right? Especially after they like, oh, come fight with us, and well, like, no, yeah. But I say this because even though their mandates and what you're going to hear coming after this is 90% pro Israel, you're also going to realize something that I think a lot of even Americans miss, because we like to sit there and say, oh, yeah, our government's pro Israel and they want Israel to defeat Palestine and Hamas. But the reality of it is, if there was no conflict in the Middle East,
None of this would be happening.
well, no, if there was no conflict in the Middle East, we would actually lose a lot. So would the UK, so would the UN. We profit.
So
We profit.
basically everybody and their grandma will be in trouble.
Well, let me just tell you this, and I'm gonna say this boldly because this is the honest truth. As an American, I will say this: we profit off of everything that's going on we profit. We profit from it.
Yeah, you're not
We
wrong.
we sit here and we act like we want it all to end. But the reality of it is, if we really wanted it all to end,
It would
every
have
single
ended.
government, exactly, because the UN, the British, the Americans, we would have stepped in there and we would have come up with something, some kind of two-state agreement already, right? Where they could be, you could have the state of Palestine, have the state of Israel, everybody living happy, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that, though. We don't want it because we profit off of the wars of other countries. Just putting it out there. But anyway, so back to the British Mandate. In July 1922, the Council of the League of Nations approved the mandate instrument for Palestine, including its preamble incorporating the Balfour Declaration and stressing the Jewish historical connection with Palestine. Article 2 made the mandatory power responsible for placing the country under such political, administrative, and economic conditions as well secure the establishment of the Jewish national home and the development of self-governing institutions. Doesn't sound too bad, right? They're going to give it its own
You know,
government.
Well, reading it out loud doesn't sound too bad.
Go ahead,
Well,
Rich.
did this have anything to do with leading to where today Jerusalem, where it ended up with a conflict between Israelites and the Palestinian people because of that Dome of Rock, and also you got the holy section for the Jewish people. Did that little area cause a little spark there because of the Holy Land claimed by the two different groups of people?
Yes. So here's the problem. Both religions see Jerusalem as a holy land. And it's right now it's determining which one had the land first. Holy Land was it first? Where did you get your stuff from? Where do we get our stuff from? And it's a big mess. And actually, if you look into Islam, so Islam starts in Israel with Abraham and Isaac, and they're all in the Quran. It's crazy. Okay, like when you get into the religion aspect of it, it's the beginnings of the religion are not much different. However, I will say, regardless of how not different the beginnings of the religions are, Judaism was around for thousands of years before Islam was. But anyways, Article 4 allowed for the establishment of a Jewish agency to advise and cooperate with the Palestinian administration in matters affecting the Jewish national home. Article 6 required that the Palestinian administration, while ensuring that the rights and position of other sections of the population are not prejudiced, under suitable conditions, should facilitate Jewish immigration and close settlement of Jews on the land. Although Transjordan, y'all know what the Transjordan, the lands east of the Jordan, I don't have to do that. But although the Transjordan constituted 3/4 of the British Mandate of Palestine, it was, despite protests from Zionists, included clauses covering the establishment of a Jewish national home. On September 29th, 1923, the mandate officially came into force. So here what we have is British coming in, and they did give Palestine something, okay? Because with the British Mandate, Palestine did become a distinct political entity for the first time, right? But this actually created problems and challenges for Palestinian Arabs and Zionists, because both communities realized that by the end of the mandate period, the region's future would be determined by size of population and ownership of land. So this mandate sounded good when you looked at it, right? Like you read it and you're like, yeah, this sounds really good. Who would be opposed to this? Well, the mandate had a closing date. It wasn't supposed to last forever. And they realized that when the mandate period ended, whoever had the biggest population and owned the most land would be the one to rule the land. You know what I mean? So if the Palestinian Arabs had a bigger population and owned more land, then they would control the land. If Israelis had more people, bigger population, and more ownership of the lands, then they would own the land. And then what happened? So you have the Israelis worried that the Palestinians might have more people than them and own more land by the time the mandate ends. And you had the Palestinians thinking, well, oh shit, what happens if the Israelis have more people and more land? We're screwed. So do you get how this kind of put both of them in this mindset of, we have to make sure we have more people and we have to make sure we own more land because we need to be the dominant one in the end. Right? And so if you read the mandate for what it actually was, it actually sets up centuries of war and destruction and riots. And
So
like I
basically,
said,
everything that's been going on right now.
exactly, because it set them up to be in competition with each other because both sides needed to be the one that had the overall population, the overall ownership of land.
Basically the overall biggest egos between the two.
Well, exactly. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna give you this mandate that's gonna bring peace. It's gonna give you this and you this and you do this, you do that. But like I said, it wasn't something that lasted forever. And when it ended, it's like, okay, it ends now. What do we do? Which side has more people? Which side has more land? Like, and it just set them up for years of war and riots and genocide and just everything. So Palestine was yeah. Palestine was a political entity for the first time in centuries. This is important because for a long time, it was Roman Empire named it Palestine and it was there, and but this was the first time in centuries that it was actually a distinct political entity. Yet the only country besides your other Arab countries that actually saw Palestine as a distinct political entity was British. Okay, you're not going to hear America's name in this for a really long time. Okay, like I'm just putting that out there. So don't be discouraged or don't worry if you don't hear us because you're not going to hear about us for a really long time. The central issues throughout the mandate period were Jewish immigration and land purchases, with the Jews attempting to increase both and the Arabs seeking to slow down or halt both. Conflict over these issues often escalated into violence, and the British were forced to take action, a lesson not lost on either side. There was little political cooperation between Arabs and Palestine. Of course there's not. Like, you just set them up against each other. Like, what do you expect, right? In 1923, the British High Commissioner tried to win Arab cooperation by offers first of a legislative council that would reflect the Arab majority, and then of an Arab agency. Both offers were rejected because the Arabs didn't feel that the offers gave them what they wanted. They had a list of national demands, and they weren't met. This
But
is
you
going to
know,
be what?
when they saw what at the end result, they found out all of this backdoor secret talks really did an impact where it has made it is today. And to be honest, it is the British mess.
Yeah, back in these days, a lot of things were the British mess, but that's another podcast. Okay. Oh. Um,
Well, they had a lot of involvement. British had a really, they got their hands deep into this.
Now, at this point, you got a lot of Arabs and Muslims worried about Zionism. Zionism is on the rise, and I want to make it very clear when we say Zionism, we are going into a period of time when you can call the Zionism of this time modern Zionism. It would be Zionism. It would be a lot of what the definition that you would hear a lot today in 2023, rather than the actual definition of Zionism. I just want to make that clear as we go into this. So, in December of 1931, a Muslim Congress at Jerusalem was attended by delegates from other like at least 22 countries to warn against the danger of Zionism. They believed that Zionism meant that they were going to be evicted from their land, killed, tortured, whatever the cost may be for the Israelites to take back over the land. The Nazi ascension to power in Germany in 1933 and the widespread persecution of Jews throughout Central and Eastern Europe gave a great, it started a great movement to Jewish immigration, which jumped to 30,000 in 1933, 42,000 in 1934, 61,000 in 1935. Now, mind you, this is in that land of Palestine right now, right? So, by 1936, the Jewish population of Palestine had reached almost 400,000. So, pretty much the Hitler gets elected and the Nazi movement is starting in Germany. And the Jewish are leaving Germany, and they're coming into what is known as Palestine at that time. But to them, they're not coming into Palestine. They're coming into Israel. That was their home. That's their homeland, their holy land. They're just going back.
So that's basically their everything. It's pretty much like their baby.
Well, you have to remember, like when we talked about last week, the Jewish population got driven out of that land. And so they ended up in Germany. But in this time you find them in Saudi Arabia and different places. Like they spread out, right? Because the land was conquered, they were driven out of the land. But now they're starting to come back because they're in Germany. Hitler's in power. We all know about the Holocaust and what Hitler's doing to the Jews over in Germany. So they're coming into what is then called Palestine. And this new wave of immigration provoked major acts of violence against Jews and the British, because the people over in that land of Palestine, now they're like, no, you can't. Like, no, we don't need 400,000. Y'all do know, like, this British mandate just ended, and this land is like, we don't know who owns the land right now. Okay, all we know is that we got this land, and we got this much population, and the Israelis that are already here got this much land, and they got this much population, and y'all can't be migrating over here. Like, no, enough is enough. We got enough of Israelis over here, which you can understand, right? Like, the British mandate has everybody up in arms right now, and they're all worried about what's going to happen. And so when Palestinian people see this influx of 400,000 people within 3 years, I mean, 1933 to 1936, it goes to, just between those 3 years, it goes up to 4. What?
I said it just goes down here from there.
Yeah, like, now, we can understand why the Jewish are fleeing Germany. I'm not saying like they shouldn't have fled Germany. I would have fled Germany, okay? The Nazis in control, Hitler, what he's doing to the Jews, the Holocaust, It's terrible over in Germany right now. It's devastating. It's a tragedy what is going on over there. So they're trying to flee and go back to what they know as Israel. And they don't I'm just gonna be honest, these people that are fleeing, they're probably not thinking about the Palestinians at this moment. All they're thinking about is, I'm Jewish, Nazis have power, Hitler's killing Jews, I'm getting the hell out of Germany. And the one place they can think to go to is what they know as Israel. So they go. They're probably not thinking much of anything else at this. Can we all agree? Like, they just want to get the hell away from Hitler, okay? Like, they're not worried about the Arabs. They're not worried about the Muslims. Right now, their enemy is Hitler. Okay? Like, I'm just putting that out there. All I know is, if I was in a country, somebody came into power and was trying to kill all Christians, heck, I'd even go to escape to Israel or Gaza Strip if it meant getting me out of where I was. Like, I might not be fleeing to the best place, but I'm fleeing and I'm not worried about Hamas at that moment. I'm worried about the government that is right now killing Christians. Like, do y'all get what I'm saying? I don't think the Israelites really cared who was in control of the lands they were going into. They were just going back to Israel and they were going to get away from Hitler. But in November of 1935, the Arab political parties collectively demanded that Jewish immigration cease, land transfer be prohibited, and democratic institutions be established. A boycott of Zionist and British goods was also proclaimed. So now it's 1935, and they're like, yo, we're getting too many Jewish people in here. Like, this, we need to demand that this stop. Like, we need to stop giving them land. We need to stop, like, all of this needs to stop. And let's put some democratic institutions in there. Like, let's, and oh, by the way, don't purchase no Zionist or British stuff, okay? Just, like, don't do it. Which we all know, like, even in America, that was one of the things they did a lot. If you wanted to protest, you just boycotted and, like, you're like, yeah, we're not going to trade with you. We're not going to buy your stuff. Like, the colonists like to do it to British a lot. Like, we all remember those days when it's like, yeah, we're not buying your British stuff. Like, it was just a thing back in those days. I don't get it anymore, but, like, y'all know it. Can y'all even think of one time when there wasn't, like, a boycott? Huh? I'm asking y'all questions. Y'all ain't even answer. I feel like I'm in this podcast all by myself. Where'd everybody go?
No, I'm right here. It's just that I'm back and forth. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I was doing my laundry.
I don't know where Rick's went either because I just asked a question. Like,
what was your question, though?
I was talking about so the Arab political parties demanded that Jewish immigration cease, land transfers be prohibited, and a boycott of Zionist and British goods was also declared. And so I was saying, like, they were saying, okay, like, you guys, we're done. There's enough of y'all here. Like, stop. No more Jewish people coming in. No more letting them buy land. Oh, and don't buy their goods and don't buy stuff from the British because they're behind the Zionist stuff going on. And I was just talking about, like, we all know about, like, the boycott of goods and trading because in the early colonial days of America, that happened a lot. There were a lot of times when we would protest against, especially Britain, by saying, "Oh, we're not going to buy your crap. We just go make our own stuff here."
Yeah,
and,
like,
we're not gonna...
yeah, because I know, like, all about that random stuff.
I think back in those days, though, saying I'm not gonna buy your crap actually made a bigger statement than it does. Just saying, like, it's 2024. I don't know how big of an impact it would be to say, "Oh yeah, China, we're not gonna buy your stuff," because telling China, we'll be honest, us telling China we're not gonna buy your goods would
I
actually
feel
do more
like,
harm
well, here's the thing:
to us.
if you were to tell them exactly what you're doing, like, hey, we're not gonna buy your shit, you gotta hit them where it hurts. And normally, a lot of the time, where that is, at least now in modern days, is where the wallet is at.
Yeah, but the reality of it is, if we went to China and we said, we're going to boycott your goods, you actually realize that would do more harm to us in America than it would to China? I mean,
I mean, a
90%
lot of
of
our
During
our.
that
stuff,
time, China
a
had
lot of
some
it, yeah,
wars
but
there too.
yeah, but the thing
No,
is
but
though, a lot
if
of
we
our
want.
stuff are imported from China.
Exactly. Like, a lot of our shelves in our stores would be empty. That would hurt our economy more than it would China. Like, it would make no sense to go and do that. But anyway. So in December of 1935, the British administration offered to set up a legislative council of 28 members in which the Arabs, both Muslim and Christian, would have a majority. The British would retain control through their selection of non-elected members. Although Arabs would not be represented in the council in proportion to their numbers, Arab leaders favored the proposal. But the Zionists criticized it bitterly as an attempt to freeze the national home through a constitutional Arab stronghold. And London rejected the proposal. Of course, damn London. It's always the British, man. I love British people, but it's always the British. Okay. Um.
The
Oh, it's
British.
Well, if you want to know one thing, the British, the reason why they act the way they do, the reason why this has occurred, is because British had a power play for the world over several hundred years, long before there's colonies of the United States.
true, but I'm just saying. Okay, so how many people have heard about the Arab? Who knows what that is? Rich, you're old. You know what that is.
Ah, that's hilarious. But you're old. You know what that is.
Rick, do you know what it is?
What is it?
Oh, you don't know what it is. Okay, fine. I'll tell you. So, the Arab Revolt took place between 1936 and 1939, and it was the first sustained violent uprising of Palestinian Arabs in more than a century. Thousands of Arab small classes were mobilized, and nationalistic sentiment was fanned in the Arabic press, schools, and literacy circles. So there is an Arab revolt. This is a violent uprising of Palestinian Arabs, and of course, the British responded by sending more than 20,000 troops into Palestine.
We all know how that goes.
And by 1939, the Zionists, now mind you, the Zionists that we're speaking about aren't necessarily on the ground in Israel. There are Zionists in the British government that controls these areas right now in London. Okay, they had sent more than 15 armed more than 15,000 Jews. So the Zionists are giving Jews guns. More than 15,000 Jews now had guns, and they was about to fight back against the Palestinian Arabs. Okay, the revolt began with spontaneous acts of violence committed by the religiously and nationalistically motivated followers of a Muslim leader who had been killed by the British in 1935. So this takes us to 1936, where the murder of 2 Jews led to escalating violence and initiated a general strike in Jaffa. And at that point, the Arab political parties formed the Arab Higher Committee, presided over by the Mufti of Jerusalem. It called for a general strike, non-payment of taxes, and the closing of governments, and demanded an end to Jewish immigration, a ban on land sales to Jews, and national independence. So they create a committee, and they say, okay, general strike. We're gonna strike. We're not paying taxes. We're closing the government buildings. We are demanding that you end Jewish immigration. Don't be selling no land to Jews. And oh, by the way, we want national independence.
Here's a crazy thought. What the hell do they need national protection for?
Not protection, independence.
Oh, okay, independent. That's a whole different story then.
It'd be kind of like us when we fought Britain and was like, get the fuck out of here. You don't control us no more. They want national independence. They want British to get the fuck out. Like, I can't blame them though. I really can't. Simultaneously with the strike, Arab rebels joined by volunteers from neighboring Arab countries took to the hills, attacking Jewish settlements and British installations in the northern part of the country. By the end of the year, the movement had assumed the dimensions of a national revolt, the mainstay of which was the Arab peasantry. Even though the arrival of British troops restored some semblance of order, the armed rebellion, arson bombings, and assassinations. So the British were able to control some of it, but they really failed a lot here too. Okay, I'm just like, British had no. They really ain't had that much control. Like the Arabs were running this shit, okay, and the British, they just looked weak when it came to this, okay.
They basically just bend down and call it a day.
Exactly. So much the British had lost control of this so much that in September of 1937 they actually had to declare martial law. Okay, they had to declare martial law. They're like, yo, we can't control this. It's getting freaking ridiculous. Like, okay, martial law, let's go. The Arab Higher Committee was dissolved, and many officials of the Supreme Muslim Council and other organizations were arrested. The Mufti fled to Lebanon and then Iraq, never to return to Palestine. Like, they fled and never came back. They're like, fuck this shit. We don't want this. Right? Which, again, I don't blame them. Like, come on. So, more than 5,000 Arabs were killed, 15,000 wounded, and 5,600 imprisoned during the revolt. I mean, here's one of the things that I've always said, and I say this about America too, right? Like, if you don't want no shit, don't start no shit. Like, for real. Like,
there's an expression: don't start a fight if you can't win.
It's like high school all over again.
Well, and I say this because you're also going to see this pattern where the Arab nations like to start shit with Israel, and Israel fights back. Israel ends up killing more Arabs than they end up killing Israelis. And then it's like, oh, they killed all our people. Well, no, you started this shit. Don't start no shit. There won't be no shit, right? But anyways,
well, the way it looks like when they brought down the Ottoman Empire, it created a whole whirlpool of mess.
Yeah, exactly. So, continuing on, the number of rural Zionist colonies had increased 47 to about 200 at this point. Between 1922 and 1940, Jewish land holdings had risen from about 148,000 acres to 383,000 acres, and now constituted roughly 1/7 of the cultivatable land. And the Jewish population had grown from 83,000 to well over 460,000. Tel Aviv had developed into an all-Jewish city, and hundreds of millions of dollars of Jewish capital had been introduced into.
Yeah, so basically, little by little, the Jewish people basically coming in.
Yes, the Jewish people are establishing a nation. They're establishing a home. They're They have Tel Aviv, and if you've ever been to Israel, and even if you've never been to Israel, if you look at pictures or videos, Tel Aviv is like the I know what I'm thinking of, and I can't even. It's like the Times Square of Israel. Okay, like you go to Tel Aviv, they have everything. Like if you want to go shop, you're going to Tel Aviv. Like it is like literally the Times Square of um, Israel. And so at this point, even here in the 1940s, they have Tel Aviv developed. They have hundreds of millions of dollars capital. The Jewish literacy rate was high. Like they were reading, their schools were expanding, and the Hebrew language had become widespread. So they're all speaking Hebrew. It's like they've never left land, right? Like they're establishing something, they're thriving, it's growing. Now in 1935 there was a split between the mainland Zionists and radical revisionists. And this is where this becomes important because you have your mainland Zionists who, if we remember, Zionism is the movement for the self-determination statehood for the Jewish people in their ancestral homeland, okay, the land of Israel. Then you have your radical and the radical revisionists advocate the use of force to establish the Zion state. Mainland Zionists don't want to use force to establish the Zion state, right? They believe that God is going to give them the land, that in time, what God promised to them would be given to them, and that they don't have to use force to get that land because God already promised it to them, and what God has promised, God will fulfill, right? But your radical revisionists, they want to go in there and they want to use force and they want to take the state back on their own terms. So the Zionists in Palestine became stronger in the 1930s and helped create the preconditions for the establishment of a Jewish state. Now we're going to get into World War II. World War II. So, Riggs, I'm going to ask you, because I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I want to ask you about World War II. Are you here?
I'm here.
All right. So, what started World War II?
Well, you got group of country. It all started from Germany that went to Poland, and they started all these other countries. Germany was the one that led to World War II.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. I was listening to you. So, throughout World War II, now mind you, at this point, we still got the Holocaust going on. Hitler's still in charge. Jews are still being killed in Germany, right? There's terrible things going on in Germany to Jews right now. And not just in Germany. I do want to make that very clear. When we talk about this time period, we like to focus on Germany and Hitler because the Holocaust was one of the worst genocides in the world. But I also think it's important to recognize that because of the uprising of Hitler, because of what was happening to the Jews in Germany, there was also small outbreaks of violence and uprising towards Jews and other regions as well. And I think that's important to note because the Jews weren't just fleeing from Germany, they were fleeing from all over the place. And throughout the war, the Zionists sought with growing urgency to increase Jewish population in Palestine. they wanted to have a place where Jews could come and not worry about being killed, a safe place of sorts. And this was it. But the British sought to prevent the immigration of Jews, regarding it as illegal. Because, I mean, let's face it, we're in the middle of a war. Britain has to, I don't even want to go into that because that's a different story. But, so British attempts to prevent Jewish immigration to Palestine, in the face of the Holocaust, led to the
Can I,
disaster. What?
can I make an insert here? It's going to be a little bit off the topic, but it gives you an idea of what's going on. If you look at the war in Syria and people in Ukraine and also people in Palestinian, the Gaza area, where they're flocking to different places because they're trying to get out of the war situation. Get that idea that what is going on today is what is equivalent what was happening to the Jewish people during World War II. That that's the kind of idea that what's happening now is equivalent to what is happening then.
Yes, yes. Although I will say I would not I wouldn't bring Ukraine into that because the Ukrainian government has a lot more to do with what's going on in Ukraine right now than a lot of people actually think and know.
Well, my point was people flocking to different countries to get away from war. That's my main point. I'm not talking about Russia and Ukraine. I'm talking about the people trying to flock to get. It's like what's happening in Germany during that time in World War II. People, the Jewish people, wanted to get out of Germany because it was very dangerous to live in Germany at the time, or even in Poland, or even in some parts of Russia where German had control of.
Yeah.
During those times, it was dangerous to be a Jew back then.
It was. So now we have the British attempting to prevent Jewish immigration to Palestine, and this led to the sinking of two ships that were carrying Jewish refugees. One in November of 1940 and one in February of 1942. The Covenant of the League of Arab States, or Arab League, was formed in 1945, and it emphasized the Arab character of Palestine. The Arab League appointed an Arab higher executive for Palestine, which included a broad spectrum of Palestinian leaders to speak for the Palestinian Arabs. Again, in 1945, the League declared a boycott of Zionist goods. We're not going to buy from the Jewish people. The major issue between 1945 and 1948.
Let me insert a little bit. During the time I have watched movies, some of the people, like for example, people, Jewish people on the boat trying to get, let's say from one trying to get to America, when they found out America is not taking anymore because they cut off it, and Jewish people were scrambling where to go there, someplace that were safe. And it really had caused a lot of problems. Some of these people in Jerusalem on those boats were stuck on a boat.
Yep.
They couldn't go nowhere.
Exactly. So just like throughout the British Mandate between 1945 and 1948, the biggest issue was Jewish immigration into Palestine. The Jews were determined to remove all restrictions to Jewish immigration and to establish a Jewish state, whereas the Arabs were determined that no more Jews should arrive and that Palestine should achieve independence as an Arab state. So then we get into Palestine, and we have Palestinian governments, which there have been many, by the way. But we're going to talk about the PLO, and and the reason why we're going to focus mainly on the PLO is because it's actually a political umbrella organization, which consists of several Palestinian groups, and we're going to get into some organizations. We all know who Arafat was, right? You know who
Yeah, that's who I was trying to think of
Arafat
last
was?
week.
Yeah,
I believe I might.
I'm sure you've heard his. Um,
I know exactly who it is because I've known him way back then, and then Arafat, and then Hamas.
yeah. So Arafat was the leader of Fatah. Some people call it
PLO.
Fatah. I call it Fatah. But he became the PLO's executive committee and the chief of the Palestinian National Movement. So here's the thing, though. The PLOs, their whole aim was dismantling Israel and purging Palestine of Zion. Um, However, they did also seek to establish a state outside of Palestine where Jews, Christians, and Muslims could live together. Okay, it was one of those. We want Palestine, but we'll figure out somewhere where we can all live in peace somewhere else. Then you have the Arab-Israeli War, also known as the 6-Day War, where Israel defeated Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, and they overran territories such as Jerusalem, the West Bank, and the Gaza Strip.
Also, during the time that Israel took, they not only took as far as almost to Egypt, they took the Mount Sinai region, which
Yeah,
in turn they gave back to Egypt.
yeah. So Israel's victory caused yet another exodus of Palestinians, with more than 250,000 people fleeing to the eastern bank of the Jordan River. Although a majority of them still stayed and remained in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. So at this point, 3 million Jews, Israeli Jews, came to rule over about 1 million Arabs. So you have several thousand Israeli Jews settling in territories and these territories after the war. Then you have the PLO, who is acting as a state in the making of a launch frequent military attacks on Israel. They are using raids against military and civilian targets in Israel, leading to the 1967 war. And in 1967, they launched a new wave of violent activities, and the Palestinian groups under the umbrella of the PLO emerged as an element of major importance in the Middle East. I mean, this whole thing is like, I'm just gonna sum this all up for you, and you can actually read all this if you Google history of Palestine. It's all there. But from here on out, like I stated when we first started with the British Mandate, it's conflict after conflict after conflict. And you have the fighting going on between the Arabs and the PLO and the Israeli government and Israel. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I know I said I wasn't like pro-Israel, pro-Palestinianist, but Israel's kicking some ass, okay? If you look at the history, just about every time that the Arabs and the Palestinian PLO, whatever, started something with Israel, Israel kicked some ass, okay? You could look at all of them. In the Lebanese Civil War, the Palestinian organizations, like, they were suffering heavy losses. But they still continued to mount attacks against Israel, and Israel would respond with raids into Lebanon. In 1977, the Israeli troops crossed into southern Lebanon, and I mean, a Palestinian raid into Israel killed 36 civilian tourists and wounded some 80 others, and Israel invaded southern Lebanon 3 days later. Like,
I have a
here,
question.
yes.
What year was the Hezbollah when Israel attacked the Hezbollah group, or however you pronounce them?
Which one?
The ones that Israel bombed in Lebanon. This was during the time that the PLO wasn't already formulated. The the I'm trying to now I forgot the name of the group of the people, Hezbollah group that Israel was fighting against. So, what year was that?
Well, we're not at that yet. We're getting into
Okay.
that. Okay. So now you have the Camp David Accords, which everybody knows Camp David, Maryland. We all know what Camp David is, right?
Yeah.
So this included the establishment of a self-governing authority in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and a transitional period of not more than 5 years, at the end of which the inhabitants will become autonomous. So then you have the Soviet Union. We all love the Soviet Union, right? I'm just joking. The
Union
Soviet Union.
Socialist Republic.
The Soviet Union, during the time of the peace negotiations, recognized the PLO as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinians, and gave it diplomatic recognition. Western Europe announced their support of the PLO, but the United States did not. The PLO wanted us to give them diplomatic recognition, and Jimmy Carter said, yeah, no, because we made a commitment to Israel not to deal with the PLO as long as it declined to renounce terrorism, and didn't want to recognize Israel's right to exist. So Jimmy Carter said, yeah, no, we're not going to give you diplomatic recognition because you still want to commit acts of terrorism against Israel, and you refuse to acknowledge that they have a right to exist.
Excuse me. I
So
can
then,
remember those days, like Jimmy Carter days, where I used to hear, and a lot of times I hear during those days of the news, there are two things going on. You got I forgot what the group is in England. They were bombing each other in restaurants and all that. PLOs were doing the same thing in the Mediterranean areas.
yeah.
So I have heard that so many times on the news.
So then you have, once again, Israel goes into Lebanon. They sit, and I will say this, that this was bad on Israel's part. I don't know what Israel's government was thinking, but we have a ceasefire, and they're going to claim that they're going to end their attacks, okay? But we have to get rid of the PLO. And so the PLOs were contained in the West, and Israel, said, like, yeah, you can go over there. And then there were some 11,000 Palestinian fighters were allowed to leave for various destinations. But then a group of Israel's Lebanese allies were allowed to go into the refugee camps, and they massacred hundreds of Palestinian and Lebanese civilians. I don't know what the Israeli government was thinking by letting these people go into these camps, because they had to have known nothing good was going to come of it, right? So, these allies, Lebanese allies, went in and massacred thousands of Palestinians and Lebanese civilians. Although not all the PLOs were forced to leave Lebanon, the infrastructure was completely destroyed. And Arafat left to go to northern Lebanon, and it was the end of the PLO's political presence in Lebanon. Now I want to. This is pretty like then you. If you, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the intifadas. There was 2 of them, but I do want to talk a little bit about the first one, because the first one is where Hamas comes into play. Now, mind you, we're now into 1987, and there's the first intifada, and again, the Palestinians started this with demonstrations, riots, and violence directed against Israelis. The Israeli Authority responded with closing schools, arresting, and deportations, and large-scale riots and demonstrations broke out in the Gaza Strip. And the uprising became even bigger and inspired a new era in Palestinian mass mobilization. Young demonstrators turned to throwing stones at Israeli troops, and the soldiers responded by shooting and arresting. And I know this paints Israeli soldiers and troops in a bad light, but if you're throwing rocks at me, you're gonna get shot. I mean, like, let's be honest here. Don't start shit, there won't be no shit, right? And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of times, especially like today, with all these pro-Palestinian protests and stuff, they like to talk about, these kind of things, and they like to talk about how, well, the Israeli troops and all, they've been shooting Palestinians and stuff for so long, and it's nothing new, and but yeah, but they forget to mention the fact that these people have started an uprising. They are throwing rocks at Israelis. They are throwing rocks at the Israeli army. How would you expect them to respond? I don't get it. Like, you caused the uprising, and now you're complaining because the people that you started the uprising against are beating your ass. Like, don't start it if you don't want it. Like, it's just that simple. Hamas challenged the authority of the secular national movement, especially inside Gaza, and sought to take over the leadership of the Intifada. Hamas was an underground offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, which had built up a network of religious, educational, and charitable institutions in the occupied territories. We talked about Hamas a lot last time, so I'm not going to go into that. So then you have the PLO. They wanted to. They created a Declaration of Independence. You have the Oslo Accord, which at the end of the Cold War, the Palestinians were diplomatically isolated. And then, you have PLO support for Iraqi President Saddam Hussein. We all know how that ended with him. That's a different story too. It just keeps going on and on and on. And then we know in 1991, hey, Rix, what happened in December of 1991? You know this.
I can't remember because I was thinking the Hezbollah. I'm thinking other things going on. So
Oh, come on, you know this. Okay, so in December of in December of 1991, there was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union went bye bye.
okay,
And the replacement
yeah,
in the Israelis,
the
they were
two,
replaced, yeah, and they were replaced with the Labor Party government that was committed to implementing Palestinian autonomy within a year. And then you have Palestinian
I mean,
Authority.
of course, if you want to read more of it, there is a good website, or you can even go on Google yourself. It shows you the
Yeah,
complete timeline of everything that's been going up until now.
I'll tell you I'm getting to the end here, but I'm gonna tell you um the I'll post a link because there's actually, if you go to the encyclopedia website, it's actually one of the best. Then we have the second um infantada, and once again Israel, I mean, the Arabs started their shit and Israel was like, yeah, not having it. And Israel beat some ass. I'm just being completely honest here. I'm kind of skimming through some of this now. You can read more, but it's just most of you probably already know about the second.
Yeah, the majority is like a
Yeah.
lot.
Then if you keep going down, we're in 2006 now, where we have split administration. So we know that Hamas became the governing elected government of Gaza, and you have Fatah in
As a matter
the
of
West
fact, we want to
Bank.
be specific. It's January 29, 2006, when Gaza gained power in Gaza.
Yes, 2006, and they have not. They were supposed to only be in there for 4 years. We see how that went too. The two factions attempted to reconcile a number of times, but it just never worked. Okay, and their unity of government was ended. They are no longer unified, and so you have two split administrations. Gaza Strip is controlled by Hamas, and West Bank controlled by Fatah. And then you go into
And then what's
2008.
crazy, yeah, and what's crazy is
Go.
I'm gonna skip a little bit further down. Um, you get into 2020, and you don't know who was the president in 2020.
Yes.
So January 28, 2020, the Trump administrator pretty much created I don't know if you want to call it a peace treaty, but they're calling it a proposed peace plan at that time. But yeah,
Yeah. 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 So we've had ceasefires and peace agreements all throughout, like all of it. Now in 2017, uh, President Trump did say that his administration was advising an ultimate deal for the Israelis and Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority received Trump, and his promise initiative was soon snuffed out by the decision of the United States to move its embassy to Israel by the contested city of Jerusalem in 2018. The United States also began to cut funding to the PA and to aid programs for Palestinians and ordered the closure of the PLO office in Washington, D.C. I don't understand why there was a freaking PLO office in Washington, D.C. to begin with, but anyways. The peace plan, released in two parts, 2019 and 2020, included predetermined solutions that proposed significant development in the Palestinian territories but favored Israel on the most contentious issues. No negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis took place during Trump's presidency. But of course, you have tensions rising, and once again, we have things going on in Israel and between Israel and Palestinians, and it's just it's, and then of course we know what's going on today, and
yeah, which all of that leads into today, which unfortunately is a fact
and
too.
I think if we want to be completely honest, again, we need to blame the British mandate. And here's what I'll say. Israel and Palestine are not going to find until the rest of the countries, the UK, America, whoever, get out of it. We need to get out of it. The reason that we are coming in there and setting up peace agreements and
We're
declaring
just making a big mess.
ceasefires and all this stuff, we're not actually doing it for the Palestinian people or the Israeli people. We are doing it for our own gain and our own profit. And the reality of it is, we can sit here, our governments can sit here, and they can sit on the Congress floor in the Capitol building, and they can declare, or in the UK in Parliament, and declare that we need to protect Israel at all costs. Israel, Israel, Israel. And then you got some on the other side that are all Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. But the reality of it is, they could care less about Palestine or Israel. And I say this as an American, okay? Our governments do not care. As long as there is conflict in the Middle East, we are profiting. We have something we want. We want conflict over there. That's why almost every single ceasefire, peace agreement, whatever, it's not just something in there for the Israelis or for the Palestinians. There's something in there for us too. Like, yeah, we're going to do a ceasefire and we're going to protect you, but here's what we want from you. Here's what you could do for us. When in the reality, with this conflict that has been going on for years and years and years, we need to stop. It's not about us. It's not about the American people. It's not about the American government. It's not about the UK. It's not about Ireland, the UN, whoever wants to get involved in this. That's not what it's about. It's about, and it's not even about Hamas. And it's about the people. And when I say the people, I mean the citizens of Israel and the citizens of Palestine. Okay? They matter. And I think, realistically, taking Hamas out of power would be remarkable. I would love to see Hamas taken out of power over the Palestinians in Gaza Strip. However, we need to be able to answer the question. If we take Hamas out of power, who then do we put into power? Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. When
There's going to be a vacuum during that time.
Exactly, because here's the problem. In 2006, who do you think brought the democracy elections to Gaza? That's a question. Who do you think brought the democracy elections to Gaza? They didn't just come up with it on their own. Like, oh yeah, let's have a election. Let's vote people in. Let's do government. Let's do democracy, right? The whole point of it was to introduce democracy into Gaza Strip, and it was the Western countries who have democracy and who practice this and who practice. They said, "Oh, do it this way," and we know that like this has happened in. We did this in Afghanistan. We did this. We tried to do it in Iraq. You know, where it's like democracy, democracy, democracy. Let's have an election. So we introduced this.
The United States has been trying to tell these countries what to do.
Exactly.
And,
So
I'm like, the countries have a right. I'm going to get a little off the subject on this. You take a look at what happened in Afghanistan and especially in Iraq. United States came in and obliterate Iraq and to totally control the government. This is what United States are doing. It's not just Iraq. They're meddling in Middle East and making the mess even bigger, and it gets bloodier.
although I will say Saddam Hussein did not be alive. Okay, like that. We actually did a good thing by taking life not out there. But yeah, we go in there and we say, okay, democracy. Let's have an election. And I'm not going to be one of those people that says America put Hamas in there because we didn't. We didn't elect Hamas. The Palestinian people did. Okay, they have elected Hamas. But I will honestly say I do not think that the people of Palestine thought that Hamas would be in there as long as it has been and become what it has become. Now, even when they elected Hamas, it was a terrible organization. It was terrorizing the Palestinian people. But I don't think they expected it to be what it is today. Okay, they really didn't. And again, we talked about this last week. I think they had one goal in mind. Like, we want our land. Israelis have it. Let's take it back. That was the common goal or the common mindset that the Palestinians at that time in 2006 and Hamas had. Hamas was, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, it reminds me a lot of when Hitler got elected into Germany. Because when Hitler got elected to Germany, and he was saying all the right things. He was saying what the Jewish people wanted to hear, right? We all have researched Hitler. We know his speeches. We know what he said. He made it all sound really good and glorious. And yeah, bring in this man. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then what happened?
Well, we all know what happened. The Holocaust is what happened.
Exactly. And so you have Hamas going in there, running for election in Palestine, and they're like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. They're saying all the right things. The Palestinian people vote them in. They're only supposed to be in there for 4 years because, again, this is democracy. We're introducing democracy into Palestine, okay? And 2006, 4 years turned into Hamas still governing over Palestine, Gaza Strip in 2024, okay?
And right now, I already finished my laundry, so I'm just throwing that out there. But I'm also waiting for my favorite part, so I can finally get it out there.
Yes, we're getting into that. Right? We're going to get into that right now. So we have this democracy, and we're going in there, and it's like, yeah, go Palestine, go Israel. Like, no, we need to get out of it. And here's another thing, Americans, we're going into it now, so be ready. Americans need to understand history before they open their mouth and start spouting a lot of bullcrap. Like, whether you're pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, a lot of misinformation is being thrown out there. And it's not only setting up conflict in America, but it's also bringing up conflict in other places. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and one of the things that Dean really wants to talk about that I'm going to introduce now is Islam, okay, and Judaism and the religions. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, every time I see a pro-Palestinian protest in America and there's these signs that say queers for Palestine and this pro-Hamas and with rainbow and trans flags, and I just want to run to wherever those protests are happening and start smacking people upside the head. Okay, like do your research, man. The Hamas, you wouldn't even be able to join.
You wouldn't be able to breathe, let alone join.
You sit here. I'm gonna say
Can
that
I
you sit
back
here.
up a little bit?
Yeah.
You know how it's just not Israel and Palestinian where we're trying to get democracy. We're trying to tell Egypt, I'm talking about the United States, trying to tell Egypt to be democratized, Saudi Arabia, all them other countries. You know, we're doing more to upset the Arab people, and put it this way, they have had their orders for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. We're trying to go in there and democratize the place. I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but at least you get the idea. We're trying to bring democracy to the Middle East. It ain't that easy. It's going to take probably another 2,000 years to make that happen.
Well, honestly, democracy.
I will say this because we're getting a little bit further up ahead, and I'm itching for a fight right now.
I just
I'm just
want
saying we've been
I just
trying to get Middle East democratized longer than
well
PLO.
well here, I'll say this real quick, and then we'll get back to what we were talking about. So democracy in nations, Arab nations that are controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood would never work because the Muslim Brotherhood does not believe in democracy. They believe in a system that says everybody must be Muslim, and if you're not Muslim, we have the right to kill you and destroy you. Um, okay, so going back to what we were talking about, um, realistically, these pro-Hamas LGBTQ plus people in the United States and in the UK need to educate themselves about Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, Islam, um, because I'm going to be 100
I'm
1,000.
gonna be brutal here because this is my topic that I've been
Go ahead,
like
go
I've
ahead,
been
go ahead.
wanting to be that I've been waiting to have an itch. I've been having an itch for a fight. Is the fact that these bloody idiots, yeah, and I'm calling all of you idiots, is the fact that y'all think that y'all gonna be protesting with all of these sunshines and rainbow fucking flags and being like, yeah, we're pro Palestine and we're pro this and we're pro that. You do realize that if you step your fucking foot inside Palestine, you cannot be free to be openly gay, openly lesbian, openly trans because they will quickly
And
kill you
Christians
right,
too.
being right,
Well,
yeah,
they have Christians in Palestine.
yeah. But however, going back to what I was saying, was the fact that first of all, educate yourself. Because you wouldn't be able to
Yes.
step one foot in there before they behead you for being openly gay or openly whatever hell you are.
Now, I will say this: a majority of the Palestinian people are Islam and follow Muslim religion. However, you will have some that will
Of course, you have
um,
some that are gay, of course, and you have some that are
well,
lesbian, blah
you
blah blah.
and
But
that don't.
also,
But
but
you have a
also
lot
you can't
that would
just
accept you for who you are. But they will, even though they accept you, they will tell you not to let the government see what you are, and you need to hide yourself, and you can't be yourself. Nobody else can see who you are because it's not something that is openly practiced up there and accepted there.
Like
I'm
just
gonna
recently, I saw an article where this young gentleman, I believe he was in his, I want to say he was either in his early 20s or mid 20s, I can't remember, but I know it was somewhere in the 20s, where he went to Israel, and just throwing this out there, Israel will accept you no matter what you are. Just throwing that out there. But he went back to Palestine to try to get his parents, his parents and his family out. But instead, what ended up happening was he got beheaded, and his body and his head was basically placed in front of his family's house. You know how sad that is? And yes, but of course, pro Palestine, right?
Yep, yep. But I also want to point out, even if you go to so even if you go to Israel, like and I think people need to understand this as well. So the West, we're a little bit different in how we do shit too, right? Because even though in Israel, you can go over there, you can be gay, they're not going to discriminate against you, they're not going to. You cannot go over there being flamboyant, okay? If you go over to Israel and you are a dude wearing a dress, or you are one of those dudes that's wearing like a halter top, and you're like, the whole hand thing, talking like y'all know what I'm talking about, right? Um,
Yeah, the little
yeah,
hey.
the Jewish people are gonna look at you like you are dumb, okay? Because although it is okay to be gay in Israel, they don't do shit like we do here, and I think that's one thing that's wrong with Americans as well. We need to stop pretending that what happens in America and in the West happens everywhere. Like, don't go to Africa with your flamboyant self, okay, and expect to be accepted because they go and look at you like you're. Don't go to Iraq or Israel and you can't do that there because whether they accept you as gay or not, they don't play that man in a dress flamboyant shit. Okay, I'm not trying to sound rude. I'm just putting that out there.
No, I 100% agree with you.
Not
There's
everybody
no
is like
need.
America. You're not going to go over there and have a pride parade where you're twerking in little kids' asses, okay? Not everything is done like it is in America all over the world. Like, we need to stop that mindset. Like, it would never happen.
I seen a few already here, and even I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
I mean, like, yeah, no.
As we have grew up as Christian, they are being attacked too. And I have heard in news where Christian people are being slaughtered in the Middle East, and it has nothing to do with LGBT. So those are the two things you cannot be fully open in the Middle East, because first of all, you got to understand the Middle East. Majority of them are under Muslim law, the Sharia law, excuse me. And then you got Israel has a law where you can't be teaching Christianity in Israel. It's also against the law.
I mean, yes and no. Because, I'm going to be honest with you, though. Here in America, it ain't no different. Christians are under attack in America all the time. Like, I'm just being honest with you. Tell me one time that a Christian hasn't, like,
Well,
can you
besides the
tell
church?
me what?
I said besides the church.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly, I can't even tell you.
Yeah, like Christianity, but also I do want to correct you, Riggs. It's actually not against law to teach Christianity in Israel. What you were speaking about was a law that was proposed that actually never passed. It was just by two people in Israeli government. You can teach Christianity in Israel. Just put that out there. But I mean,
didn't they have a law like you can't go into the synagogue and teach Christianity? There got to be some kind of a law right there.
Well, why would you? First of all, why would you want to go to into a synagogue and teach and preach Christianity?
Just making that an example. I'm trying to think, and I think that what makes me think that Israel. And someone said there is a law in Israel.
There is not a law in Israel that you cannot teach Christianity. Yeah, there's no law like that you can't teach Christianity in schools and stuff.
Isn't like the whole Israel thing like based on Christianity?
No, Christianity is based off of Judaism.
Oh well, no, never mind. I take that back.
But as a Christian, if I were to go to Israel and I were to go to the prayer wall or into a synagogue or any place like that, I'm going to follow their religious statutes. Okay? When you go into
because it's called respect.
Exactly. When you go into inside certain places in Israel, you can't wear tank tops. You can't wear shorts. You have to dress modestly. I would do it. I'm in your country.
They got dress codes. Yeah, they do.
I'm on your sacred land. I'm going to do what you do. I'm not going to come in there and be like, oh, well, I'm not Israeli and I'm not Jewish. So I don't have to follow. Like, no. If I want to enter that synagogue, if I want to go into the prayer wall, I am going to do what is expected of me based on your religion and your requirements for entering this holy place. Like, as a Christian, Jerusalem is holy to me. Israel is holy to me as well, right? As a Christian. However, the Jews, it was a holy place to the Jews first.
And I will say this too. I'm throwing this out there. I do not have any religion whatsoever. You guys know me by now, and I've said it before on countless occasions. But if I were to go to Israel, right, of course I will follow the laws of Israel. I'm not gonna go over there in a tank top and shorts and go into these holy places and expect me to not give a damn. Like, no, I will respect it.
Well, and exactly. And I mean, if you just go to Israel and you don't visit any holy places, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to Israel and you plan to visit holy places, you need to make sure you know what attire you need to bring, how you have to act. Like even at the prayer wall, I brought up the prayer wall. When you walk away from the prayer wall, you have to walk back, right? And you have to know what to expect, how you're supposed to act, what you're supposed to do, because it's called respect. Like Dean said before, it's called respect. Um, and so like realistically, like nobody should be going into synagogue preaching Christianity and Messiah. Like if you want to do that, do it outside of the synagogue. Like do it somewhere else. Do it in Tel Aviv, like the Times Square of Israel. Don't go into the synagogue and do it. Because here's my thing. And like Rick, what if a Muslim came into your church, your Christian church, and started to speak about Allah and the Quran? How would that make you feel?
He would send
I
them out
would
the
feel
door.
like, part of my expression is saying in the church, I would say, oh, hell no, you ain't doing this.
Exactly, because it's not respectful. Now, if you want to stand outside on the sidewalk by the church and you want to preach, then do it. Do not come into that though, because it's disrespectful.
Off the premises
Regardless.
of the property.
Exactly. Like it's disrespectful, and I honestly believe that. But I think like realistically, the problem is Americans have no respect. I'm gonna say it as an American, we have no respect. Okay, we have no us and our first world problems, man. We will never understand the real world because we don't live in the real world. We live in a first world country where, I mean,
Everybody's offender over a pair of tissues.
I mean, I'm not saying America is perfect. We still got a lot to learn. Okay, it's been like what 2,000 years. We still got a lot to learn. Okay, I'm not even going. Not 2,000 years, 200. I don't even know.
Wow.
I said
I
give you
was
a good
rooting for you
example.
this whole time.
I'll give you another good example.
Oh my God.
We already talked about like Christianity. Let's say for us, we go to Europe. We got to be careful how we behave too, because you have to respect that people in that area.
Respect who? King Charles? I ain't respecting King Charles.
That's what I was gonna say. I ain't respecting this
Hey,
fucker either.
if Queen Elizabeth was still alive, I'd respect her. I ain't respecting no Charles, man. I ain't respecting no Charles.
Didn't he be in the hospital a few days ago? It was some kind of heart issue. I think of myself, he ain't going to live too long after this.
Oh, don't get my hopes up. It's like, no, I'm joking. You know what? He's not gonna last very long.
You're like so excited too when you said that.
No, he is not gonna last very long, and then William will be king, and everything will be right with the world again. Okay. Oh man. You know what's funny though, and it is funny because so
King Charles is 75 years old. You think he's going to live as long as his mother? I doubt it.
y'all want to hear something funny though? So look, so Charles and that little hoe he's with, they
That woman, whatever her name is.
I know her name. I just ain't saying her name. She a hoe. Okay. They aren't even living in Buckingham Palace. So Buckingham Palace is being renovated, and they're adding room stuff to it, and I find it hilarious because they're over there, and like Charles and his little hoe, they acting like, oh yeah, it's being renovated, and we're gonna move into it in a little bit, and blah blah. Blah. No, you're not. You're not. It's gonna continue to be renovated until Charles dies, and here's why. They're adding rooms and shit to it. Do you know what they are doing to Buckingham Palace?
I have no idea.
No idea.
They are preparing Buckingham Palace for William, Kate, and their fortune.
Well, I mean, that's obvious, isn't it?
Because I'm gonna tell you, the Queen did not. I'm telling you that Queen Elizabeth, I give her so much respect. She tried to stay alive until Charles was gone because she did not want Charles to be king. She made that clear countless times. And for her to pass away, and then immediately, like a week later, they're going into renovation on the palace, and they're adding a nursery room to it, and they're adding this to it. She knew what she was doing.
That
She said, "You look."
that makes sense. They did
She
exactly what it was intended. They started renovating to keep King Charles out. That's the
that
main
queen,
reason.
the queen was not stupid. She said, "You might." She knew she was going to be going soon, and she's not stupid because she said, "Yeah, you might be king, but you ain't living in Buckingham Palace, fucker."
And she's probably not happy about, I
We're
know
getting
she
a
was
little, we're
not
getting
happy
a
about
little bit outside.
Diana,
We're
but
getting like
after
2 hours in.
she was not happy about, uh, at the time, Prince Charles having a woman and married to her where she is now. He was probably not approving of that woman at all. I bet you she hated her.
Well,
Alright,
no,
alright,
that's why
so,
they didn't get married to begin with. He had to marry Diana. He was with this hoe he's with now even before Diana, and the whole time he was married to Diana. But anyway,
alright, so we're going like 2 hours in. So, final thoughts?
my only final thought is that I'm excited for next week, and I'm ready to roll for next week. And I hope everybody else is ready to roll for next week because I'm coming. I'm coming from a conservative point of view,
And I changed my party, so we're gonna talk about that too.
I want y'all to bring your popcorn because this is gonna be a field day because I love Rick's, but me and him, I'm gonna tell you
And
straight up,
I'm
me,
going to
me
be
and
super
Rick's, me and
representing
Rick,
my independence.
me and Rick's are on total opposite political spectrums, and it's whenever me and him get really into politics, it is very interesting, and so bring your popcorn and prepare for me to school Rick on reality because um
Yeah, also, I'm doing the
yeah.
announcement again. If you guys would like to join in either as a guest star or if you'd like to have your comment thrown and being featured on here and we read it out loud, I'm more than happy to welcome that in too. The more people
Yes,
we
Before
have, the
we
because
better.
close, before we close, I like to put an ending caps of it.
You
Something
got
just
five
popped in
seconds.
my
Hurry up.
mind.
You got
huh?
5 seconds.
5 seconds because I got something to say and then we're gonna close. Go, Rick.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, you lost. Neek, what was you gonna say?
During the time that we have, like, I would say, all the years I know the issues between Israel and PLO, I have never seen how people all of a sudden has protests all over the world doing roadblocks and all that. And it's just like when this
I have
happened,
no idea.
it just like everything
I have
got
no idea.
blown up, not just in the United States, but in other parts of the world. I'm like, where did all of this uh where did all of this protest coming
I said
from?
final
How
thoughts,
did this
not a
happen?
history
Okay,
lesson.
social media, and we're gonna get into social media and how they play in protests and stuff next week because that's part of our government conversation. But I'm gonna end with this, Dean, and then you can say what you guys say and then close it. But next week, so although we are coming at it with information on all of your candidates from all the parties, from Trump to Joe Biden to I forgot
DeSantis.
DeSantis ain't even in it no more. Nikki Haley, all of them. We're gonna bring you all of them, and even the independent people, because there are some independent people on that list, like Robert F. Kennedy and all them. We're gonna bring you all of those. The information, their policies, straight from their own websites, straight from their mouths. We're gonna have videos. We're gonna have debate clips. We're not telling you anything that's not publicly out there. But we're also, that being said, we're also going to be coming from our own perspective. And so I'm going to be coming as, speaking as a conservative that's a registered Republican. And I'm just going to put this out there now. I am going to be pro-Trump. I am voting for Trump in the election. Putting that out there. So, it is going to be a thing where we bring everything to the table, but we're also going to have our own perspectives and put our own opinions and thoughts out there. I just want to lay that out because typically we try to be non-biased, but this is going to be a debate where we are going to have our particular opinions depending on what side of the aisle we are on. And that's why we're asking for you guys to be a part of it so that you guys can bring your opinions from your side as well. That way,
I will be posting it on all my social medias. If you guys want to join once again, just let me know. You can pick me up on my social media, which I will post once this video goes live.
But I will say, be ready to debate. If you're gonna come, be ready to debate. Okay, because I will debate anybody, and a nice debate, but I will debate.
Yeah, just try not to curse anybody out at this point.
Yeah, we're not no names, no name calling, no cursing, no Nazi, fascist, none of that stuff. We're gonna have a respectful debate, but be prepared to debate. All right, I'm done.
What happens in Washington D.C.
We ain't inviting AOC now.
You mentioned her one more time. I swear to God.
Do you want me to reach out to her on Twitter and invite her?
Fuck no. What do you want me to do? You want to kill me? No.
She gonna talk about cow farts.
Hell no. Alright, we're gonna end that on that now.
I always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never